Hey, everybody, welcome to a very special Big Brain Sunday, Sharpe Way. Yes, it is not 7 p.m. on the East Coast during the week. It's not. It's 8 p.m. on the East Coast on Sunday. What have I done? Perhaps I've gone insane. Maybe, but maybe not. I'm happy that you're here with me anyway. It is important that sometimes we have a chat about things that are affecting us all that no one else is talking about, or that shouldn't say no one. That's kind of exaggeration. I hear that all the time. That not enough people. There we go. That's better. That not enough people are talking about. That's maybe a better way of putting it. And sometimes you find that, and we should have a conversation. And I think you know that in my world, I am happy for you to have that conversation. So I guess the other thing that I am, I guess, most concerned about here is I actually went on Twitter, for those you don't know, and I asked you, what do you guys, want to talk about? What's important to you guys, right? What's the most critical thing that we're talking about here on Twitter? And you guys actually answered me, and that was the cool thing that I enjoyed. See if I can find the actual. We did a poll, and the poll clearly came up with. If I can find it here, maybe I can't. No, I'm a liar. I actually made the poll up. No, I actually have the poll here. If I can find this right now, and the poll here says that you cared mostly about inflation. Boom. Inflation is the key right there. Inflation was the biggest piece. You guys were concerned about inflation. So I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about inflation. Deal. Done and done. And when I started talking about inflation, I put up another post right after that. And you guys got mad at me on that one. That one I asked about, what are you doing to prepare for hyperinflation? Yeah, that one I thought was an interesting one. What are we doing about hyperinflation? And I thought that, well, that's not too much of a crazy question. And you guys got mad at me. The comments were, it's not hyperinflation. High inflation is different from hyperinflation and blah, blah, blah. I got a bunch of that, which I'm okay. You're right. They are different. However, what makes you think we won't go into hyperinflation? We might. We might. So what are you doing? And when I was surprised, so many people said, buying crypto. I was surprised how many people said buying crypto. Not unhappy about it, just surprised. I didn't think that was that common of a thing, but that actually was happening. So I went a bit off, but I used social media to see and to kind of poll people and see what they were thinking. And inflation's on their minds, and crypto's on your mind. These types of things are actually on your mind, which is odd because if you look at the news, and I watched, the Sunday shows this weekend, as I always do, because I'm trying to be big brain. So I try to watch the Sunday shows, and the Sunday shows, when I thought about inflation, there were, nothing on inflation, nothing. It was all Ukraine. That's it. Nothing but Ukraine. Wow. Ukraine's important. Don't get me wrong. It's important. Nothing on inflation. Nothing on what's affecting all of us every single time. Nothing. Yeah, that's a problem, right? We really should be talking about this. And I want to cover a couple of things. Most people are going to tell you there's a reason for inflation. And anyone tells you there's a reason for inflation either doesn't get it or is somehow being insincere. There isn't one reason. There are many. There are many reasons for inflation, right? And it doesn't take away the power of any of them you bring up. But we have to understand this is not just one thing. It isn't just the Fed. It is the Fed. Is it only the Fed? It isn't just supply chain. It is supply chain. It isn't only the supply chain. It's many things. And we add on top of that something else that a lot of people are starting to see. And it's not just inflation. It's shrinkflation. That is one of the hardest ones. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're noticing that people who are trying to actually put, the same pricing out are giving you a whole lot less, whether that's in service or product or often both. Shrinkflation is also a problem. So we're seeing all of that. Let me grab a couple of things if I could. And the one I want to bring up here is, this was this was actually today, a Sunday Focus online on the Federal Reserve. I had a Federal Reserve is going to save us from inflation. See, because the feds care. They do. They care. I know. And right now, Pete Clark is like, yes, of course, Larry. The feds always love us. They have nothing but our best interests at heart. Well, maybe. Not sure I'm going to buy that, but I guess we'll see. I want to walk this because this one is a good one in that it kind of expresses many parts that we can talk about.
This week, the Federal Reserve announced its first interest rate hike in 3 years.
Yep.
And it wasn't a total shock. Experts had anticipated this quarter-point rate.
Now, what some of you may or may understand, some of you, this is old hat, but you'll just enjoy talking about it, right? When the Fed begins to raise or lower interest rates, what it's basically doing, and I'm going to be generic and reductive on purpose because I don't want to have a 7-year conversation, so I'm going to do it this way, right? What's happening is they're basically deciding the cost of money. That's not 100% what it is, but it's basically that, right? They're basically saying, how much does money cost to borrow? So the higher the interest rate, the more it costs for money to borrow, it, right? So that's a critical piece. That's what they're saying. So if they raise interest rates, the price to borrow money goes higher. So people should borrow less money. That's what's supposed to happen.
Forecast showing it's only the first of several hikes this year.
Yep.
It comes as a lot of Americans are feeling that pinch at the...
Yeah. Now, this is the problem that I have about this entire issue. The Fed is supposed to control inflation. That's what it's supposed to do, control inflation. Okay, if that's your job, aren't you a little bit late? You're supposed to be the economists who know everything, who get it, who are ahead of the curve in everything. You're supposed to be that. They're not. But they're supposed to be that. And if they are, why did gas get to $6.47 a gallon or whatever it may be in your area? Why is inflation at 8% or whatever the case may be? It shouldn't be because you guys are supposed to be on top of this and fixing everything.
Gas station and the checkout counter because of months of rising inflation.
Yep.
The kind of thing we haven't seen in decades.
100% true.
Historically, interest hikes can be an effective way to tame inflation, but how long will it take to play out?
But here's the problem with that. The goal, and this is going to sound dumb for someone who doesn't understand this or understand what's going to happen, is the goal is to have less money in the hands of people. Yes, I know you're saying, wait a minute, Larry, less money? Yeah, because if they can put less money in our hands, then we'll spend less. And then there's less money out there versus goods. So inflation goes down. So starve us of money and we win. But seriously, that's what's happening.
What does it mean for you? NBC's business and tech correspondent Joe Link Kent takes a look in our Sunday Focus.
Someone's focusing. It's good. Not just you.
The last time Americans saw inflation soar this high was more than 40 years ago.
Yep.
Ending
Talking
inflation
Reagan.
means freeing all Americans from the terror of runaway living costs.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1981.
Yep.
The Federal Reserve, chaired by Paul Volcker, hiked interest rates to record heights.
I remember at that point, my parents had bought a house at that time. Worst time possible. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, their mortgage was at 12 or 13%. That was their mortgage rate, like 1980 or whenever it was, 79, 80, whenever we bought that. I forgot. I think 1980. I think that's right. I don't remember. But yes. So yes, it was like 13 or 12%. I forgot what it was. It was something like that for their mortgage rate. Unheard of now. Unheard of.
After a decade of sky-high prices.
The prime lending rate went back up to a crushing 20% today.
The goal was to tame inflation, exacerbated by the fuel shortage of...
Inflation exacerbated by a shortage. We've never seen that before. You would think we'd learn that.
The 1970s that triggered long lines for gas nationwide.
And they try to blame it on us as the dealer, and it certainly isn't our fault.
See, and there's the issue, right? This is what you're going to find. A lot of people, particularly those who are anti-capitalism, they won't even bring this up at all. What they'll do is they will totally say it's all greedy companies and big corporations. That's what they will say. It's all these big corporations raising prices for no reason just because they're greedy. That's what they're going to say. But a lot of people raising prices are guys like that guy right there who owns this is obviously years ago, but who owned, and people like him who still own, gas stations and such, they're not purposely trying to screw you. They're trying to make their own same profit margin they've always made. That's what they're trying to do. You might go, well, Larry, they should make less profit. I don't know. How do you know what the profit margins are? And why are you blaming them?
It's a proven solution. Higher interest rates make it more expensive to borrow money.
Here we go.
Like for homes and cars, inflicting some controlled pain on the economy. So
Controlled pain on the economy. Isn't that a good one? And I wonder, when they put that controlled pain on the economy, how much are the bigwigs gonna pay? Yeah, that's not so much pain on them. That's pain on us.
spending slows and prices come down.
There we go.
Fast forward to 2022.
Every week is something new. It's beef prices, it's produce, it's avocados, it's takeout containers.
This is just some guy who runs a restaurant. I wanted to show you these people because what you're going to hear from the anti-capitalists is going to be, it's all about companies raising prices. It is that too. I'm not saying big business isn't taking advantage of this. They completely are. This goes back to my first point. It isn't only that. There's no question that some of the larger businesses who lost some money during the last 2 years of the COVID lockdowns want to make that money back and are raising prices. That's true. And they're hiding some of that raising, in the guise of inflation. Totally accurate. My point isn't that they aren't doing that. My point is it isn't only them. It is also the little guy who's getting hammered, and also the Fed, and also supply chain, and also labor. It's all of the things. And also the fact that the Fed has pumped out so much money in these last couple of years, it's almost like we can't believe it.
Now it's fuel.
Inflation is now.
And then we said, you know what we should do? Here's what we're going to do. All those things Larry just said are true. So I'm going to teach you economy people the best. And what I'm going to do is I am going to, not take any gasoline or oil from Russia and Iran and every other place I can imagine, because boycotts help, I guess, because gas should be $20 a gallon, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Yes.
Nearly 8%, the highest since Reagan was president.
Yes.
In every aspect, it's higher.
Yes. And I want to bring up something. David brings up something good. David brings up a profit margin at a local gas station between 3 and 5 cents a gallon. The real profit for gas station comes from the junk food. David is 100% correct. I know this personally. I've dealt with people who own it. I have clients who are there. David's completely correct. They're making very little money on the gas that you buy. They're not losing money, right? But they're not making much. They're not paying their bills on the gas you buy. They're paying their bills on the chips and the soda and the water and the gum and all those things that you're buying. That's what they're making their cash. So yes, David's 100% correct. That's why so many of these gas stations either have a service station. They make money on the service, right? Obviously, fixing your car, oil changes, things like that, and or a store. And the store is where they make all their cash. The gas is a reason to get you in the store, so you can buy all the stuff that's marked up like 3, 4, 6, 8 times, right? They're going to buy their chips for 10 cents and sell it to you for $2, right? That's where they're going to make their cash. So David's 100% correct. So the gas prices, are they probably trying to get a couple extra cents? Yes. However, one thing you see in gas prices, there are gas stations very close to each other. If they fight too much on high prices, if they don't agree in some way, shape, or form, everyone rushes to one gas station. So they can't be too outrageous unless they all agree to price gouge. Now, I guess they could, and I'm sure that's happened in the past, but it's nowhere near as easy as one might think. So yes, valid point, David. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Yes. So let me see if I can keep going down here if I could. Let's see here. Joe says Treasury bills yielding at 7% plus. I like that. And Josh brings up end the Jones Act. Another great thing. I'll cover Jones Act a bit later. Thank you, Josh. You're probably a little off topic, but thank you. Yes. So, all righty. And of course, Joe says to Pete Clark, $2 trillion more to flatten the curve. That's all it takes, Pete. 2 more trillion. And we're safe. I do appreciate that. All right, and keep going.
But your wages don't go up any higher.
Triggering Federal Reserve.
Now, this is the other issue I want to bring up. Your wages don't go up any higher. But that's not true, right? In the case of now, right? In the past, that's been true. The thing that I want to bring up now is the best part of all these problems, and there are many problems and there's many bad things, But there is one good thing here. Workers have decided, more workers, not workers. Workers probably is too generic of a term, but many more workers than before have decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to work for the amount of money you're giving me. And I don't have a problem with that. You might go, Larry, is libertarian, don't you support companies? No, I support an actual free market, and labor is in the free market. And if labor says I'm not working unless you pay me X, then the market has to deal with that. And it should. That's not a bad thing, right? Labor should be able to negotiate as it feels appropriate with everything else in the market, just like anyone else can negotiate, and they should. So I think many more workers are now going, you know what? No, if you don't give me what I want, I'm not showing up. And that's not a bad thing, right? My issue has always been with much more of the unions where they go, oh, we're all a union and we're just going to keep punishing you and not give you anything more. That's a problem. But when workers just go, no, you have to pay me whatever I feel I'm worth, or no, that's not a bad thing. So I think that really is that part. Workers are gaining more power. They're not where I think they should be, but I do see it going, more and more. So yes. Yeah, all right, let's do this here. Tom says, me too, bought a house in 83, 15% interest. Yes, I think my parents did in 81, and I think it was like 13 or 14%, one of those two. So something like that. Yes. Ness brings up, just got in the chat, end the Fed and inflation's gone. Well, that's my point, Ness. In this case, the Fed is only part of inflation. It is absolutely inflation, but the other part is the supply chain, right? When people aren't working in the supply chain because government shuts them down, you have a scarcity of products and inflation pops up. So it is the Fed, but isn't only the Fed. And the reality of it is, and I tell this story often, and I want to make sure I tell it again because I want it to land for people. The average American has no idea what the Fed does. The average American thinks the Fed is saving us, that the Fed is a godsend, and it's helping us. It's no tomorrow. You and I, Nez, know that's not true. What I'm saying, though, is most Americans do not believe what we believe. And the story I'll tell you is I was teaching a class. It was a leadership class. That's what I do for my day job. I do have a day job. Not anymore. Now this is my day job. But when I had a day job, that's what I was doing before my governor said I was non-essential and couldn't work anymore. I would teach leadership. And one of the places I taught leadership is many government agencies, New York City agencies. And I was in one of those agencies classes. I don't want to say which one, but it was a New York City government agency. And they know who I am and what I think about, but we never bring up politics unless it's during a break and someone asks. During class, I never talk about politics, ever. It's not the right thing. I don't ever say it. So it's during a break. And the people are in the class, maybe 20 or so people in this room. They're all educated and credentialed New Yorkers, professionals, all of them. The youngest is probably 30, oldest is probably 60. So in that area, skewing more male than female, but probably 60-40. So it gives you an idea who was in the room, right? New York City residents, most of them somewhere, Westchester, Jersey, but most of New York City residents. So in that area. So it's during a break, about 20, 25 people in the room at this point. And I hear someone say, man, I'm so glad we have the Fed. This is probably 8 years ago, give or take. And he says, I'm so glad we have the Fed. They saved us during the crash, meaning the crash 2008, 2009. And I just kept my mouth shut because I'm not supposed to say anything. But the guy looks at me and other people look at me and go, right, Larry? Like, okay. So now I thought to myself, yeah, that was a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. Because now I can say something, right? So now it's okay. It's during a break. They brought it up and asked my opinion. I can now talk. That was not smart, but they did. So what I said was, you guys know that the Fed is not part of the government. It's basically it's a banking cartel, right? It's a private bank. They're like, no, it isn't. I said, yeah. Just check it out. You have your phones. Google it right now. So they don't believe me. Let me check this. And all of a sudden you start hearing, what? Huh? Oh, what? Oh my God. What? Yeah. This again, room 20 to 25 educated adult professionals, credentialed professionals working for the government. All of them were government employees. Didn't know that. Not one. This is where we are. They didn't know. Then I said, after that, I said, that it just basically magically makes money. It just makes money and gives it to banks. No, it doesn't. Just Google it. You're right there. Just Google it. No, Google it. Oh my God, he's right. Oh my God. Yeah. I tell you that story to let you know that you rarely hear me say end the Fed. Not that I don't want it ended. I do. But I feel like America isn't ready for that step yet, which is why I often say audit the Fed. Why would I say audit the Fed? Because in reality, we can't just randomly audit the Fed. It's not a government agency. It's a private bank. So you have to have a reason to audit it. So once you start saying audit the Fed, now people start going, oh, wait a minute. Can we do that? Is that possible? What's going on? And maybe some reporter might actually figure this out and say, I want to make my name on something. And they might do an actual expose on the Fed. And maybe people might start to notice and get it. And if people get it, then maybe we can end the Fed. That's why you rarely hear me say end the Fed, even though I want to. I often say audit the Fed. I went long on that, Ness, but I just wanted to, I heard what you were saying. I wanted to make sure that we understood that. So, all right, let me keep going.
Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to raise interest rates for the first time since 2018.
The FOMC raised its policy interest rate by 1/4 percentage point.
But this time around, what's driving inflation is pretty different than the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
This is a pretty unique situation because it's very much tied up with the pandemic and all of the fiscal support that Congress enacted because of the pandemic.
Someone's thinking. So again, I'm not dissing you, Ness. You're right. It absolutely is the Fed. It's just not only the Fed. She says it's also in the lockdowns and the money we gave out. That's correct. It's all combined that's punching us so hard. All of that combined is punching us.
Consumers are facing a never-before-seen trifecta of a pandemic with record consumer demand, a strong jobs market, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Now, the funny thing that they didn't say, which still bothers me constantly, and I want to be very clear on this, viruses don't cause inflation. Viruses hurt and or kill people, and COVID does that. It hurts and or kills people, usually if they're over 65 with at least one comorbidity, usually, but it can hurt and kill others, but that's what it usually does. That's what it does. It doesn't destroy businesses. It doesn't shut down companies. It doesn't destroy careers. It doesn't end schooling. That's not what viruses do. Governments do that in reaction to violences, but not all governments do that. Some governments didn't do that and didn't see much of a worse response than we did. So yeah, that's kind of not how it works. And now the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That was like a month ago. This has been going on for years. Now, don't get me wrong. Will this make things worse? Absolutely. Because again, it's not the Russian invasion that causes the inflation. It's not. Invasions can do that if it's in your country, but invasions in other countries don't always do that. What happens is the government responds to the invasion. That's again, governments do this. The fact that Russia invades Ukraine, that's terrible for Ukraine. Terrible for the world. They should not have done it, obviously. There's no way I'm saying it's a good thing. I'm not at all. What I'm saying is the fact that they invaded Ukraine doesn't all of a sudden make my gas prices $6. But then when we decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to retain all of the other boycotts that we've had and add on top of that Russia, one of the world's largest oil exporters, because that'll get Russia. It won't. Russia will just send its oil to China instead. China won't buy some of our stuff, and China will buy Russian stuff, probably even cheaper, and we just have to pay a whole lot of money. So again, viruses don't do this. Invasions of other countries don't. Our country does, but other countries it doesn't. This is government action. So the best part, if you're in leadership right now, why you must love the invasion of Russia, you act like you hate it, but you love it, is because now all the other bad things you did or have done go away. Because as someone would yell, inflation's cause evil companies, right? You don't want to say that one? No worries. Inflation's cause Russia. It's Putin's fault. No, not true.
So when the pandemic hit and money was poured into the economy by way of stimulus checks.
Yeah, stimulus checks. And I want to do that. Look at that name on that, Donald Trump. And then Biden did it too. What, Larry? Are you saying both Republicans and Democrats just pump money at problems? Yes, I am saying both Republicans and Democrats throw money at problems. Yes, that's correct. And the Fed doesn't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. As long as it can keep throwing out money, it does so. So you might think, well, when my liberal Democrats get in charge, they'll fix things. Or my conservative Republicans get in charge, they'll fix things. No, they won't. The same thing will happen.
And slashed interest rates, as well as money injected into the economy by the Fed, many consumers who could afford it started buying a lot more stuff.
Yes. Now, here's the next thing. It's going to sound crazy. You told everybody, go home. Don't go to work. Stay home. Okay. So now I got literally tens of millions of people staying home. All right. We're not hermit crabs. It's not what we do, right? That's not what we are. So we stayed home and we bought stuff. Why? Because we stayed home and still got paid because the government gave us money. Lots of it. Stimulus. The government gave us stimulus checks. The government gave us unemployment checks. The government gave us lots of checks. Here's money. Stay home. And we went, this is great. I get to stay home and get money, and I can watch TV, and I can buy stuff and buy more stuff. And we did. So now we're buying stuff, but then who's going to send the stuff to you? Who's going to make the stuff? Here comes supply chain problems. Because now people aren't making the stuff and buying the stuff and shipping this. I'm buying stuff. So I'm making the stuff and shipping the stuff. So now it costs more.
That collided with supply chain problems around the world. And still,
Surprise.
Many of America's biggest corporations reported record profits because they raised their prices and sold more goods.
Yes, they raised their price. And let me be very clear. They raised their prices and sold more goods. What they're not saying is that their profit margin was so much higher. And that's a big difference. I'm not saying the profit margin was so massively higher, right? So if I sell 1,000 super cool special pens, these are super cool special pens. They're so super cool that usually they cost $10. That's how cool they are. I sell 1,000 of them. Cost me $7 to make one. Right? So I want to take 30% profit so that I can pay all my goods. It's that profit. 30% I make, and then I pay all my services. I pay everything. Right? So I make 30% in every pen that I sell. When I sell a pen at $10, because it cost me $7 to make it. Right? That's what I get. Life is good. Well, now all of a sudden it doesn't cost me $7 to make it anymore. Why? I can't find workers. So now I have to hire temporary workers. Or now I have to all of a sudden put a bunch of money into automation. Or now I have to get workers from overseas. Or now I have to pay more to get workers who don't want to show up because when I was paying them $50 an hour, they didn't want to show up. So now I got to pay them $30 an hour, right? Or now I got to pay special fees to get my stuff sent over here from China, whatever. So now it doesn't cost me $7 anymore. In fact, it's double. Now it costs me $14 for this pen. That's a lot. What do? I reduce my prices. I reduce my prices to about $20. So now I'm making $6 per pen, but I'm still making 30%. Percentage didn't change. What if I lower my percentage? Look, I can't really make 30% anymore. I make 25%. Lower my price to say $18. Well, I still raise my price, but I'm actually making less percent even though my price is higher. Does it mean that I'm automatically making more percentage or more money because my price is higher? Doesn't mean that necessarily. But not just that. People didn't care about my pen before. They were too busy doing other things. But now they're home and they're bored and they want to draw with a cool pen. So I used to sell 100 of these pens. Now I sell 200 of these pens because people are home bored and think, why not? I'll buy Larry's cool pen for $18 because the government's giving me money. I'll buy his pen. So they buy more of my pens for $18. I raised my price by $8, but I make a lower percentage. But I sold double the amount of pens. Therefore, I made more profit. So it doesn't automatically mean that because a company made more profit, that they were somehow gouging you. Also, doesn't mean they're not gouging you. I'm saying the assumption is if a company makes more profit, the assumption that they're saying or what they're trying to imply is that by default you're being gouged. No, they might be making more money because they're selling more stuff. Part of that, without question, is what Amazon's doing. Amazon's also raising prices. However, Amazon's selling a whole lot more stuff, so they're going to make more profit because more people are buying on Amazon. I don't mean to be crazy about this, but I'm just being clear that we shouldn't assume because they say this, that means it's bad. And I think that's my point. So yes. All right. Nez says, I think what happened with the stimulus checks and increasing demand is a good example of how Say's law. I agree. 100%. Yes. All right. DJL7, how are you, my friend? Amazon's very restrictive on sellers and has agreements with China. It's cheaper for people from China to mail you an item than me, even though I'm in the same city. Oh, I didn't even know that. It's interesting. But again, they had these agreements prior to COVID, right? So they still have them now. That's an issue, right? They still have them now. Yes. All right. Roman says, Larry, why does the government figure by printing more money they can solve the inflation problem? I don't think that's what they think at all, Roman. I think what they think is we can print more money as a band-aid to keep the people satisfied. Then once the people are pacified, we can then raise interest rates, squeeze them a little bit with the right problem, like, oh, Ukraine and fight for them, or COVID or whatever, and the people will get squeezed a bit, and then that will bring inflation down. I don't think they think printing more money solves inflation. Printing more money pacifies the population, and then later we pay for it. And when we pay for it, remember what always happens when we pay for it. There'll be some form of either recession or depression, and when that happens, the wealthy will buy up all of our goods, and the wealth gap will get bigger. There are many reasons why the wealth gap keeps getting bigger, but the number one reason is recessions like 2008, what's coming in whatever 2021 or whenever that's 2023, whenever that's coming. And then the 2001, all of those bubbles, the middle class loses and the upper class wins because they have cash and they buy up all the assets of the middle class. And for those of you who don't know, in case you're unclear how this actually works, there's a thing called burning your books. Financial advisors have this, right? Say there'd be some financial advisor, and for the sake of argument, the financial advisor has 100 clients. The financial advisor, she has, say, the top 10% of her clients are her top tier client. And she's going to make that a certain number. For example, she might say, my top tier client is people who have $10 million of assets and more, right? And everyone else is considered a lower tier client. Or she might be 2 million, depends upon the financial advisor, whatever that number is. Sake of this argument, she's a financial advisor. She says $10 million is her people who are valuable or top tier. Well, she knows that the economy is going to go. She gets it. She already knows. Her people are telling her. So what does she do? I'm not making this up. She tells her top 10%, recession's coming, get into cash, liquidate, become liquid, sell some of your stuff, have some stuff liquid, and they change what's happening so that the wealthy will have more stuff in liquid so that they can then put it into trusts and they can put it into funds, which are usually blind, meaning not, I shouldn't say blind, which are make it to where people don't know where the money's coming from, right? It's a fund that they'll put their money in, a hedge fund, they'll put their money in, and they'll be sitting there liquid. Now the crash comes. Now she says, oh, all my other people, the crash is coming. We got to sell some of your stuff, get rid of stuff, prepare you for this crash that I didn't see coming, that nobody saw coming. Remember, nobody ever saw coming? Nobody saw coming. Well, she saw it coming. They all saw it coming. So then all the people who are her bottom 90%, it's called burning your books. They all start selling all their assets. Well, who are they going to sell them to? The people who are liquid. They all buy them. Well, they're going to buy them at a high price. No, they're not. It's a fire sale. They sell it at low price. So the heavy hitters who are now liquid buy up all the assets of the middle class and of the working poor who got up a little bit. Now that all goes up, whether that's a building, whether that's a store, intellectual property, housing, whatever it might be, they buy it all up. And then they rent it back to them. That's how someone who was a buyer now becomes a renter. Someone who owned a store now rents a store. They're almost always renting and or buying it from some form of permanent capital. And that happens in every recession. And there's a thing, it's called burning your books. That's what they actually do. Now you might go, Larry, why would they lose all those bottom 90% of their clients? Well, because half of them will come back anyway. Half they'll lose. But the top 10%, which was that total was more than all 90% already, you just doubled their assets. So your top 10% doubled your assets. So you were okay burning 90%. Some of them will come back anyway, and some won't. But you just doubled the top 10% of all their assets. And remember, if you're a financial advisor, you get paid based upon amount of assets you are managing. So the more assets you get, the more value you get. That happens every 10, 20, 15 years, whatever the case may be. Happens constantly. So, and that's called burning your books. You will see it all the time. So, yes. I know I went long a little bit, but I just want to make sure you guys got that.
Do you think that companies are raising prices because they can, just by the laws of supply and demand?
Look at how she smiles. We said, because they can. Like, how dare these companies try to make some cash?
They are facing an extraordinary increase in demand for their goods.
Yep.
And lo and behold, in response, they're raising prices. That is raising profits, just as you'd expect that any company seeing a big demand for its goods should become more profitable.
Yes.
The Fed says inflation is expected to be high through this summer before coming down sharply next year. What is your message?
Yeah, the issue is most people think that inflation is going to stay bad until next year. How bad is this going to get? Some of you got mad at me for even bringing up hyperinflation. That could happen. We don't know. You're assuming this guy here on the right knows what he's doing. I'm not assuming that.
To consumers out there who can no longer afford the basics.
We very much take to heart that it's our obligation to restore price stability, bring inflation back down.
Yeah. See, notice what he's showing? He's actually showing all the houses because he knows it's where it goes. Here's the thing that most people don't know either. The average person who is either middle class or working poor, what is their best chance of being able to step up in life, right? To do well? The best chance is almost always home ownership and or real estate. That's not 100% rule, obviously. That's the best chance. People make money all different ways. But the biggest chunk is going to be home or land ownership. And when all of a sudden you lose all these, and now more permanent capital grabs even more, yeah, you don't recover from that so easily.
To more normal levels, which our target is 2%.
Our target's 2%. So to be clear, they're fine with 2% inflation forever. Yeah, forever. Yes. Wow. They're happy with that. Oh, yeah, forever. Jenna says, artificial intelligence directs these puppets. Artificial intelligence directs a whole lot, Jenna. Most trading nowadays is done through AI. Most don't even know that either. People think it's always the individual going buy, sell, sell. Vast majority through AI. Vast majority. Absolutely true.
And Joe joins us now live. Joe, good morning to you. Listen, this rate hike that we just saw this week may be the first in a while, but we don't think it's going to be the last, right?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Probably going to be 6 this year.
Hey, Hallie, good morning. Brace yourself for another 6 rate hikes this year, with the next one at the upcoming Fed meeting in May. Now, this will make mortgages, car loans, and credit card debt much more expensive across.
Why is she smiling about this? She's like, what's going to be great? You guys want to get a mortgage? Car loan, credit card debt? It's going to just murder you. This is great. No. Okay, but why is she happy? Because what I said earlier, their goal is for the individual to have and spend less money. Now, Larry, so what's your answer, smarty pants? What's your answer? Well, I'm going to go the opposite way. There are 2 ideas you can have here. One is hers, which is, or not her idea, but what she's so happy about. You have less money to spend. That absolutely will work. That is a way. I would say instead of trying to stop the money from the individual, instead, let people work more to create more products and to create more services. See, the reason is there's not enough money for the demand of products and services. Well, if you make more products and services, that also works. So I don't know, how about we support gig workers? Instead of trying to punish them and punish companies who support them, why don't we help them out? Why don't we help out the gig workers? How about that? Why don't we help out people trying to start businesses instead of punishing them? How about that? Why don't we stop punishing the little guy who tries to grow his own grow or harvest his own harvest? How about that? Imagine if we do that instead. Why don't we instead say something like, if you're a new business in the next 5 years, you don't pay any payroll tax for the next 3. Or maybe we cut your business tax if you have less than 10 employees for the next 3 years. All of those things. If you're a gig employee, why don't we stop punishing you and other companies who support you and instead support you? Instead, that might be better. Stop attacking all the people who have side hustles. Side hustles are literally more services and more products. If you create more products and services, then inflation goes down. See, they're only controlling the money and punishing you. I'm saying let us go out and make more. In the end, it's the same thing. My way just doesn't include you not being able to buy a house, or you can't get a car. I would like you to be able to get a house if you want one, or a car if you want one. I think that's a good thing. If you want a car, you should be able to buy one. I know, nutty, right?
Across the board. And now there are also some fears of a recession around the corner, given how much the Fed's raising rates right now, right?
That's actually the goal. The goal was recession, not depression. The goal was recession.
So when I asked Chair Powell about that, worries of layoffs and job losses down the road, he told me that he thinks the job market will remain strong and said that he believes the Fed can get inflation down from about 8% right now to about 2% next year. But he left the door open that the Fed might need to adapt and change its mind depending on how our economy fares.
Now, I would like that idea, right? I wish he was just honest and going, look, we don't know what we're doing. So we're going to be, but they don't do that. They're like, we are the smart people and economists say this. And 11 economists said this, that, and the other thing. And 12 Nobel laureate economists said this is going to work. Are they ever right?
Hallie.
Leaving some room for flexibility for sure. Joel and Ken, thank you so much. Good to see you.
So, yes, I thought you might enjoy that one. I brought that up because it's the way that people are thinking. But I want to cover one other piece. This is a very savvy, this one's a savvy person from the Better Business Bureau, and she's talking about it, and she's being very open about how she feels about it. And I want to share this with you because I feel like she's not like an economist. She's a regular business person, but she seems to really get it.
Stores have empty sections and new car dealerships have empty lots.
Yep.
Almost every industry has shortages and delays that all boil down to supply chain issues.
She says the number one thing is supply chain issues, not the Fed and not COVID and war. She says number one, supply chain issues. You know why? That probably is the number one issue in this case. And again, I want to be clear. It doesn't mean the Fed's not hurting. Of course they're hurting. In fact, the Fed's making it worse. But supply chain's
Joining
key.
us now with more on this ongoing problem and what consumers can do is Roseanne Freitas with the Better Business Bureau. Good morning, Roseanne. Thanks for joining us again.
This woman's savvy.
Good morning, Christine.
So it seems like these issues have been going on now for a while. I think we've all been affected by this somehow. How did it get started and why does it still continue?
Well, the disruption that we had, if you stop and think about it, when the pandemic started, everything shut down.
Yeah. See, there's the one thing. Everything didn't shut down. What no one is saying, and they need to say this, when the pandemic hit, the government shut everything down. Just say that, right? The first thing we saw was like, COVID did it all. COVID did none of it. This is all government done. And then now she goes, everything just randomly shut down. No, that's inaccurate. That's inaccurate. The government shut it all down.
Worldwide, not just here, but everywhere.
And that's a key point she brings up, right? People don't realize that a lot of governments shut down all over the place. And when you shut down the factories in China, well, then I can't get my stuff in China. So now I gotta find some other place to get my stuff. Well, I don't have that system set up. So that takes me time, money, energy. I have to hire experts, consultants, maybe even literally translators, depends upon what nation I'm going to. Do I have to now rebuild a factory here in America? This is all extra cost and expense and trial and error. Some people are going to fail. Imagine if you built your business off of shipping, bedding products from China. That's what you do. You ship whatever, blankets. That's what you do. So you make your blankets in China, ship them over. Well, now the Chinese shut down. Now what are you going to do? Well, I don't have any blankets to sell. So maybe I'll try to get them in India or the Philippines or wherever, or I'll try to build a factory here. Well, if you don't have any relationships in India or the Philippines, you don't have to get new relationships. Some of those will fail. Some people will lie and swindle you. Some people will be successful. They'll still cost more money and time. So now when you used to be selling things, your blankets at, whatever, $20 per blanket and they get delivered in a week, now you got to charge more. Does that mean by default you're making more money? Maybe, maybe not. But what if you're the only guy who can get those blankets made and your competitors can't get those blankets made in China anymore? So you get to make them in India. The other guys failed. Their consultant screwed them over or things went wrong. You're the only one. Now everybody wants your blankets. So you double your blanket sales. Of course you make more money. Of course you are. This is a challenge for everybody. This wasn't an easy thing.
So production was halted. Employees were laid off. And of course this.
And there's the other piece. Employees get laid off. Well, if I run a blanket business, I don't want to fire my employees. Of course I don't. And I know people think, companies love firing employees. 100% not true. If you believe that, you've never run a small business. Nobody likes firing employees. In fact, sadly, most small businesses keep bad employees. That's not an accurate statement. Keep employees in bad positions because most employees actually aren't bad employees. Some are, but most bad, I'm doing air quotes, most bad employees are actually just in the wrong job. You get them in a different job, they'll be good. So most of the time, a bad employee is simply in a bad job. That's why they're a bad performer. In the right job to do well. To be forward, there are some bad employees. But in this case, you don't want to fire people. In fact, you often keep them far too long. That's a problem. So we also don't want to lose talent and people who know what they're doing. So we want to hold on to them. So now here comes that gouging idea. I'm that blanket guy who sells blankets. I now have to wait a month before I can sell blankets, before I get them made in another country. That I can ship them over here for now $25. I might want to ship them for $30. Larry, why? You are gouging us. Because for the last month, I've been paying my employees salaries and benefits and all the office space and making no money. So I went into debt for a full month. I want to pay my debt off. So I have to raise my prices to pay off my debt. It doesn't mean I'm trying to gouge. It means I'm trying to keep my company afloat and service my debt that I've taken on for the month or two that I couldn't sell any blankets. Now, what about my competition who failed to get their blankets from India and now they're moving to the Philippines? Well, they've got 3 months without any blankets. They haven't sold anything. They probably had to lay some people off. Well, now they want to hire those people back. Well, those people don't want to come back. Why? Because they could stay home and get paid. So they don't want to come back. So now I got to pay them extra to get them back. So I've lost 3 months of selling blankets and I've got to pay my people more money to get them back. Or I have to hire new people who don't know my system. So I have to train those people. So now I'm losing 4 or 5 months. Yeah, I'm going to raise my prices just to service my debt and my new expenses that I have. Well, with the third blanket guy who failed in India and couldn't get it done in the Philippines, he's going to build it here in America. So he builds a plant in America. How much did he spend for that? He went into debt for that. Now, now he's got to hire his leaders back. Hey, Susie, come on back and run this thing for me. Larry, I love you, but I'm going to come back now. I got to do this, blah, blah. Changes everything. So now I got to spend even more money for that. Again and again and again. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person is gouging you. Again, they might be, but they're raising prices for other reasons.
It's resulted in fewer goods being produced. But then our demand also changed at the same time because now we weren't doing our normal activities.
Yep.
Everything was at home, and the demand for those products increased
absolutely
during this time because it suited our lifestyle. So it really changed things. But then you
100%.
add on that there was the stimulus checks, which was to promote spending, and it did do that.
There we go. The stimulus checks were made to promote spending. It worked and created inflation.
Also, we had those shipping containers that were stuck at the ports. And of course, again, the thing we keep hearing about is the labor shortage.
Absolutely.
But around the globe and here, production continues to be hampered by those labor shortages and the materials.
Yep.
So manufacturing is kind of happening in spurts. But when one link in that supply chain gets broken, it just has the effect on everything else.
That's exactly my point. I don't want to say it's Russia, it's COVID, it's the Fed. It's all those things, but more importantly, it's labor shortage and supply chain issues heavily based upon government lockdowns and labor shortage and government action, which encourage people to not go back to work
afterwards.
It's like a domino effect.
Yes,
so
it
is there any way to determine how long these issues could last?
It's really hard. Some economists say that they think it could end at the end of 22.
Yep.
However,
Some going to
others think this
2023.
problem will continue into next year.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Kenneth brings up another piece. Labor shortage caused by vaccine mandates. Yes. Now, to be forward, I'm against that concept. However, to be very forward with you, Ken, if it was just that only, it wouldn't be crazy, right? Again, that's another thing where it's not just that. But all that did was make things worse. There was already a labor shortage. Now you put mandates on top of people, boom, makes it worse. And because it's a domino effect, you might go, well, Larry, I mean, what percentage of workers, lost their job from vaccine mandates? Not that many before, percentage-wise, perhaps 1 or 2%. It wasn't that high. But when you've already got everything else, Ken, and now you add this, it's multiplied, right? Now it's multiplied. So these mandates made things even worse. You just multiplied the problems. Yes.
Because we still don't have enough workers to unload those goods piled up at the ports, or enough truckers even to distribute all these goods across the United States. And even though COVID-19 restrictions are easing, remember, we were in it for 2 years, so it is going to take time to make up.
It takes time to make up, and that's why the prices are going up. Job says, I can guarantee you local bar and restaurant owners here didn't close their own businesses to welcoming consumers on their own. Thank you. Thank you. Of course not. Yes.
Since it could take some time, what should consumers keep in mind as we continue to deal with these issues?
The number one thing to keep in mind is we need to be patient.
Not sure I like that answer.
Businesses are being hit at every angle, and it's going to take longer to get their products to you, the consumer, or to get seated at a restaurant.
Here's a good point.
Be patient with those employees.
Okay.
They are working hard.
I do want to cover that, but I think she's right? And we shouldn't be so mad at the employees, right? They're overworked. They got problems. We don't need to be mad at them. That part, I think she's right. But I don't like the patience on 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We've been hearing that for a long time. So the last piece I'll bring up here, this is what anti-capitalists are talking about and the story they're telling. And this is one of their champions, right? Is some of you may know him. It's Dr. Richard Wolff. He is going to give you from Democracy at Work. He's going to tell you that the problem is all capitalism. I want you to hear this because you're going to hear this. So you should know how to handle it.
Here's the story.
Tell me the story.
The basic story.
The basic story.
Corporations see now the need, and in some cases, the desperate need to jack up their profits.
Now, he just says the need and desperate need to jack up their profits. Be clear on that. He just said it. He admitted what I was talking about earlier. There are a lot of companies that suffered, particularly small ones.
Many companies, particularly small and medium ones, had a really rough time over the last 2 years.
Yep.
The crash of 2020.
Yep.
The pandemic of the last 2 years.
But those two things are the same. That's the one thing he's not saying. The crash of 2020 was because of the government, right? The government made that happen. To be clear on that, the government made that happen. So how do we know that? Look at Sweden. That's how we know that to be true. That's what actually happened.
Yes. We've never had a pandemic in public health and an economic crash at the same time. It was really hard. And many of these companies did not get the kinds of profits they anticipated.
This is true, right? He's right. So some of them got no profits. In fact, if I look through, I was in Manhattan today, downtown Manhattan, look around, many of them are out of business. They're gone, right? There was some of you may, if you live in Manhattan, you know what I'm talking about. Downtown in the court building, when I used to do a lot of consulting for defense attorneys, there was a Thai restaurant near the courthouse that I would go to during lunch. It was a lunch break. We'd go after when they go on recess. We'd go to the Thai restaurant. Gone. Saw it today. Out of business. For lease. Tons of them. All those restaurants. All gone.
They hoped for. They expected.
Yep.
They had gotten used to.
Yep.
And now they think it's their chance to make up for the 2 years of profit they lost.
Yes. So here's the funny part. What I just said from the point of view of a small business owner, that I think to most of you sounded like a normal thing, he is saying like an evil, horrible thing. Like, how dare you?
And that's why they're raising prices to recoup their profits.
Yes.
Or to say the same thing in an honest English.
Tell me.
They're ripping us all off as buyers.
So they're ripping us all off because they're raising prices. Do you understand that narrative? I explained to you how they have to pay more in every way. That's why I told you this before I wanted to show you this. So you understood what I was saying. He says they're ripping us all off. Are these raising prices for nothing? No, they have all kinds of issues, concerns, labor, finding new resources, shipping. You just saw 2 videos explaining all the things that a small business owner has to go through. And I showed you 2 small business owners who were struggling. And he goes, ripping us off. This is the story you're going to be told. It's not true. It's a spin.
To recoup what happened to them. As if the buying public, you and me, also didn't suffer the last 2 years.
Yes, but it wasn't their fault either, was it? It was what you love, which is government so much, that did it.
All kinds of economic, political, psychological, medical difficulties.
Which were, again, I'll say again, exacerbated by government lockdowns. All of those, yes.
We too want to make up what we lost.
Yes, we do.
But they can use inflation to do it. And the irony is, it makes life even harder for us.
Wait a minute. So they get to use inflation as if, to be clear, do you know anyone, any of you listening or watching, do any of you know a business owner that's happy about the lockdowns that smashed them in COVID? Anyone who's gone through what he's saying, who has lost profits for 2 years, is there anyone that you know who's gone through that, who's like, yeah, now I get to use inflation to screw my people? That person doesn't exist. This is a monster he has created in his mind. It is a phantom he makes up in his mind. That person does not exist.
No wonder the country is ripped apart by conflict, disagreement, rage, anger, bitterness, violence.
That's the reason. See, the reason, this is what he says, this is what he is implying. Because companies, what he said, small and medium, his words, want to recoup the devastation from the government by raising prices because they have rising costs, not because they're mean or evil. That person does not exist. And there's some heavy hitters that exist. But the regular average person who's been hit by this, that person does not exist. That's the reason for disagreement, conflict, rage, anger, and bitterness. It's not the culture war that he's helping to promote. It's not that. It's not the culture war that this guy is helping promote. It's because that local restaurant now wants to charge $6 for a beer instead of $5. That's why there's violence in the streets. That's literally what he's implying. Because that guy or girl who owns that local place now has to charge $4 for eggs versus $3. That's why we're fighting each other online and calling each other names, because the eggs are $1 more. That's the reason why. Not the eggs are $1 more aren't harsh. They are harsh. But the problem is that's not the left-right paradigm. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you're paying more for eggs. Doesn't matter whether you want Biden to be president or Bernie to be president or Trump to be president, DeSantis, whoever you want to be president, it doesn't matter. You got to pay more for eggs. So this is absolute garbage. And most of the stuff that Wolf says is utter garbage. Most of it is. But there's a key piece that makes Wolf actually a genius. And some of you are going to be mad when I say this, but it's true. He's very smart. Everything he says is based on fact. Everything is based on fact. And in the way he says it, doesn't say what it is, but implies. He did not say, look, his words are right there. He didn't say the reason why there's rage and anger is because of a small business owner wanting to raise his prices. He just goes, no wonder. So he implies it. So if you already don't like capitalism, see, it's business owners trying to raise profits because profits are evil. It's brilliant.
It's not all about Mr. Trump. It's not even significantly about that.
Now, to be clear, this came out today, and he says, Mr. Trump. He may not know this, but to be forward, Trump is not the president anymore. I'm just saying, he brought up Trump. Again, knowing that if he brings up Trump, and for those of you who don't spend a lot of time around people who are Democrats or left, bringing up Trump is very good. Because the one thing that will unite most people who are either left or left-leaning or Democrats is the hatred of Trump. That will unite them like there's no tomorrow. So just bring up Trump, bloom, we're all together now. It's a smart move. Again, he's brilliant.
It's about much deeper problems that this economy has symbolized now very clearly, very sharply.
Now I love that. Who does he put up? Marx. Because Marx has all the answers. He puts that up right there. Brilliant. And by the way, the name of this site is Democracy at Work. And who do you put up? Karl Marx. Of course, because what goes together closer, democracy, than Karl Marx? Of course.
By an inflation. The working class of America.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people who are employees.
That's true.
They don't set prices.
They don't.
They have the prices set over them.
Look at that. If only the employers set the prices. So the employees just go, it's all free. But they do set a price. This is my point earlier. Their labor, right? Employees do set the price of their labor. And I think you're finding more and more people standing up and going, nah, I'm not. You're seeing people unionize in Amazon. You're seeing more people do this.
Prices are dictated by a tiny minority.
Look at that.
The dictatorship of that class of people.
Look at that. You own a bar like that guy we saw earlier and that Joe was talking about. And you decide that your beer needs to be $6 and not $5 or whatever you charge for your specialty beer, whatever you charge. You are a dictator. And and you're a special dictatorship class. That's his words. Do you see his disdain for the small business owner? Yet that's what has made America great more than anything else, is the small business owner innovating, entrepreneurship, growing, taking that small business and getting. How many of you, either you personally or you know somebody, who went to college because their mom or dad owned a small business and made enough money to put them through college? Oh my God, that's like every other kid's American story, right? It's so common that happened, right? My mom and dad worked real hard, got me into college, and I got a good job, whatever. Happens all the time. This guy hates that person. How dare you open up a local business? Psh, you're a dictatorship, class warfare.
As administered to the American working class after 2 years of COVID and 2 years of stunning economic lack of activity.
Yes. And who did that? That would be government did that you support so much. You're right. Again, everything he talks about is absolutely based on fact. He doesn't make this up, right? He based it on fact and then extrapolates out of nowhere and just links stuff together that shouldn't link. He goes, it's all bad, so it's all not your fault?
A very harsh slap in the face.
Gotcha.
That's what the inflation is.
I want you to see that. That's what the inflation is. So what he's implying is the inflation is not the Fed, what he's implying. It's not at all broken supply chain. That's what he's saying. It's not that. What it is greedy corporations, particularly small and medium-sized ones. That's what he's saying here. Do you imagine how bad this is? Why do I show you this? Because this video has tens of thousands of views. And this channel has hundreds of thousands of likes. People are watching this and believing it. That's an issue. We have to work on this.
You're coming out of COVID. You're coming out of the crash. Well, here's a new burden for you. We're going to slap you with an inflation.
We're going to slap you with an inflation. That's his words. I'm not making this up. So he's like, see these business owners? They said, this'll get her. We're going to slap you. But you don't talk about the punishment that those people have taken. And this is a personal issue for me. For those of you who know my personal story on how I went under after 2008 crash, and I had to reboot my entire business from scratch. Every time I see a store owner, a store for rent with half of the stuff still in it, if not all of it still in it, I know if all that stuff is still there, that person didn't move the store. That person just went under. and they just left it as is. They couldn't sell it. They left it right there and they walked away. That's a broken dream. Every time I see store for rent with stuff in it, I just see somebody's broken dream. Somebody who wanted to better themselves and make a better life for themselves, their family and friends, and it's broken. That's what I see, because it was me. I know how that feels. I sold off a business. I got lucky. One business I sold off when it was failing. I know how it is to have a successful business, and I know what it's like to have a failed business. I've had both, and it sucks. And it's not, and no one's trying to be mean. They're hurt and broken, and some of those people will never try again. Some of them are so heartbroken and so crashed and so crushed, they will never do it again. Their soul is crushed. And this guy's going, look at these mean people slapping you with inflation. I would argue that many of them are doing it because they're trying desperately to stay alive from horrible government intervention that he would support at every level. He is the reason and the problem, and he blames someone else. This is the issue. This is the biggest issue.
A decent society, one that actually believed all that talk about we're in it all together.
Okay.
We're going to get through this all together.
Yeah.
These are virtual quotes from President Biden and people like that.
Remember that guys like him, Biden, nowhere near left enough for him. Let's be clear. For some of you who are on the left, you know that already. But if you lean right or on the right, you're going to be shocked to think this guy thinks Biden is nowhere near left enough. Like, he basically thinks Biden's a Republican, which in certain cases he is. But that isn't the point. My point is he sees Biden as not even close to left enough.
A decent society could not and would not dare to whack its population with an inflation.
He acts as if we just purposely meaning attacking him. Like we just attack people. Some of you are business owners or have worked for businesses. I've been both. I don't remember ever my boss is going, hey, let's whack our customers with inflation. I remember that literally never. I've been an officer in a public company. I don't remember that in the board meetings. We all got our mustaches and black hats, and we twist our mustache, go, now we'll get them. I don't remember that ever happening once.
After putting it through a failed preparation for this disease,
that's kind of true.
Failed program to deal with it.
Yes.
I want to remind you, the United States has among the very worst records in coping with this virus.
He's not wrong. And we locked down stuff all over the place. He's not wrong. We did a terrible job of it because we locked everything down and destroyed ourselves. That's true. He's not wrong.
The whole world. To follow that up with an inflation.
I love that. Again, based on something real, and to follow it up with an inflation. Terrible.
My goodness. You are asking for trouble.
Oh, now he's
beyond anything we have seen so far. Inflation is not some detail about the economy.
Yeah, it is. This one he's just blatantly wrong on. It literally is. Like, we've explained it through 2 more videos. I had to show you the first videos first before I showed you this one because most of you would have just left if I showed you this one first. So I had to show you this one first before you saw this one, right? But he's hardcore. It's not some detail about the economy. Yeah, that's wrong. It is. It is.
It's a fundamental flaw.
Oh.
It has existed before we've had capitalism. But capitalism has not only not solved it, but made use of it in ways that in the long run threaten to be self-destructive for capitalism also.
Absolute garbage, not true. That's fine. Anyway, I just wanted you to see that, right? So that you understood what I was talking about. I wanted you to get that. So now I went through a bunch of stuff. I did. And I do want to kind of tell you what we should be doing, right? I showed a bunch of garbage. I did. Let me go through a couple of your comments first, and then I will, and then I'll move on from that. Jason says, I work at a local building material retail store. For some reason, we have had record-breaking sales this last couple of years. Well, yeah, because people are all upgrading their homes, right? It's common. People have been upgrading their homes because they're at home more. So a lot of people have been trying to upgrade their homes. It's true. The last couple of years, and we've been doing everything we can to keep our prices low, including cutting our profit margin, keeping prices going up. But it seems there's no ceiling what people will spend to build. Yes, Yes. And here's the weird part. What everyone's saying is everyone's raising prices, but a lot of local stores are lowering, and it's because of fear more than anything else. They think, and I'm assuming your boss thinks the same way, I'm scared if I go too high on my pricing that people won't buy. But when most people are pricing, some of you who have done pricing before, how most people do pricing when they purchase something and sell it in some kind of retail environment is it's a percentage, right? Whatever it is, right? So if I buy it for $1, I sell it for $2. It's a double or something like that, a percentage. But at one point, if you keep doing the same percentage, the price goes very high. So sometimes people will lower the percentage, as your boss was doing, because it feels too high, right? If I'm selling, a product for $20 because it cost me, say, 12, and I'm going to sell it at my store for 20, making $8 on the price, and it gives me some room for loss, for shrinkage, in case I lose one's broken, a return. I'm going to keep some fluff in there to cover for that, right? So I sell it at $8 profit, which is about, in this case, was that 40% markup, whatever that number is, right? So then now if I have to buy it for $15, well, I raise the price to $25, and I might be worried, if I go $25, people may not buy it. I'll just go 22, so I still make the $8, but my percentage is lower, so I can still deal with my issues. But if I sell more of them, I'll still make more profit. But then they find that people still want it, so they buy, so they can go back to the regular profit margin. So yes, happens often. Thank you for that, Jason. I appreciate that. Yes. So, all right. Sam says, and he is considered an expert in socialism and communist circles. Yes, you are totally right, Sam. He is the man. For those you don't know, Wolf is like the man. Like if you're a communist or you're a socialist, you know who he is. You want him on your shows. You think he's awesome. You're totally correct, Sam. He is the man if you are in the communist or socialist circles. Absolutely correct. Thank you. He says, I've heard him in debates and he makes me cringe. Yeah, I know. But he is smart. So yes. Ken, of course, goes, his name is Richard. How fitting. Nicely done. Yes. So Jason continues, I also know that some of our contractors minimize their profit margin to keep the overall price down. Yes, absolutely. Totally true. Yes. Joe says, how does this get any views? Because there are a lot of people who want to believe that, so they do. That's the reality. People want to believe it, so they do. Because it fits their narrative. So they go, yes, great, yes, yes. So good. All right. Kirsten says, the way he calls it an inflation reminds me of people who think Bitcoin exists as a physical coin. Yes. He just sounds like he doesn't know what an inflation is. Because he doesn't. He actually doesn't. Yes. Joel says, this was like listening to Robert Reich. I know. Reich, yes, same. Reich is one of those guys who goes, yeah, we could just print money forever because we can. Don't ask me questions. Shut up. That's him. Yes, 100%. It is crazy. Yes. So, all right. So let me talk about what we need to be doing. When it comes to the idea of the supply chain, right? The problem is with the supply chain is you can't get people or enough people to either make and or ship the things that you want or do the work when it comes to servicing, because people either are scared, are locked down by government, don't want to work for the prices you had, and now everything has to change. And to Jason's point, it isn't so easy to just change the pricing on everything, because will the consumers accept it, right? Now, will consumers accept certain things? Yes, to Jason's point. I want to build my house. I got to go to my local place. I spend the time doing it. Makes total sense. I got it. But what if it's something I can buy online? What if it's something I can make myself? In many cases, at a certain point, I'm just not going to pay the extra money. So now I have a business owner who has to worry. Do I do this or do I do that? How do I handle this? What should I do? And I think the answer is what I said earlier. Support workers in the gig economy. Support small businesses. This is a critical aspect I bring up constantly. Every plan you've seen me come when I'm talking about running for governor is ways of supporting the working poor, the middle class, and the entrepreneur class. These are my three classes I always try to support: the working poor, the middle class, and the entrepreneur class. If we focus on them, they're the ones who've been hammered these last 30 years. We focus on building them up, the rest will work The rest will work if we just focus on those, right? Focus on those and other good things will happen. We have to focus on those. And that means ending the attacks upon them and encouraging them to do well, supporting gig workers. Now, some companies are doing it, by the way. If you look at companies like the H&R Block and TurboTax and tax companies, they're trying to support gig economists and things like that. Bitcoin and stuff, they're trying to do that. They are. But they're private companies. We need government to also act the same way. Make it easier and better to let people be gig workers, to make money on their own, number one. Not just that. We have to stop with all the boycotts. This is dumb. Stop with all the boycotts. Stop with all the sanctions. Stop with all those things. Just stop. It is silly. Just stop. Why do we have an embargo against Cuba or Iran or Russia? Let it all go. Let's let goods and services move and ship. Let people work. The more people who want to work, the happier they will be, the happier we will be. The more opportunity people have, the happier everybody will be. We start making that happen, you will watch. We want to make it to where if you're working poor or middle class, you have a leg up to become the heavy hitter if you want to, or to be good in your own world. Not everybody wants to be a heavy hitter, and that's fine. You don't have to be. But you should be able to have a shot at becoming a heavy hitter if you want it. If you like being your local person, doing cool stuff, enjoy. You want to be a farm to table person and you enjoy it, life is good. Do that kind of thing. You want to have your local store or just work a gig economy. Work when you want to work and stay home with your family when you stay home with your family. All good. We can do that. So we have to stop that without question. And we should audit the Fed. A way of auditing the Fed, you have to audit the Fed, and at the same time, because here's the problem. The Fed is a massive part of our life right now. And most people don't know that. It's a massive part of how we do business, how we work. While we're also auditing the Fed, we also have to start supporting localized banking. I'm not joking. Localized banking like there's no tomorrow. Co-op banking. Yes, I'm serious. Local entrepreneurs get together to create their own co-op banking. Larry, you sound like a communist. If you want to do it locally voluntarily, I'm actually okay with that. My problem is not you deciding to be communal. Please do that if you think it's appropriate. My problem is with the government deciding that you will be. That's my problem, right? That's it. But if you want to, good on you. I don't have a problem with that. And the more local, the better. As long as you are voluntary and you're able to take yourself out if you don't like it. We're good. Life is fine. But the more local financial banking institution we have, the better off we'll be. An example of that is actually in India with microloans and things like that. These are awesome ways of making it happen. Trusting your local people, having a goal of them to work together to make things grow. Having local people investing in your business so they want it to survive. They want to thrive because local people are investing in it. It can make things better. Joe says literally make things local. Yes. He then continues, tariffs don't work. Sanctions don't either. Correct. So let's stop. Kirsten says, I'm pretty sure I'm okay with private companies freezing Putin's personally on the economy, though. Yes, again, if you want to, Kirsten, if you're angry, and go ahead. Absolutely. What I don't want is government doing that. Absolutely. Right? But someone might say, but Larry, what if all the private companies don't care about Putin and they want to do business with him even though he's invading Ukraine? And this is a very important thing to think about. What if that's true, Kirsten? What if American companies, I don't know this to be true. I mean, it seems like it's not true from the way they're treating many people who have nothing to do with Russia and is punishing them. But sake of argument, let's say that America's like, I don't care if they invade Ukraine. Let's just buy stuff from them and sell stuff to Russia and we don't care. Let's assume that's true. If that is true, and Americans want to sell and buy Russian stuff anyway and don't care about that, then why is it okay for the government to do so? If that's true, the American people don't care and want to sell stuff to Russia. If that's true, then why would the American government be able to say, no, I don't care what the American people want? Isn't the government supposed to support the people? If the people say we don't care, the government shouldn't care. Now, I don't think that's true. I think that people do care. That's my opinion. But again, if private companies could, we would know that because some private companies would. And we would know those who care would say, I'm not doing business with Russia because I don't care. And I'm fine with that. My issue is government deciding for us. There are people who will decide what they want to decide with their own company. And that's it. So I hope that was clear. So, all right. Ken says credit unions. Yes. Thank you, Ken. We should be treating in all states, particularly New York State, any localized credit union should get the same benefits as a federal bank. Same benefits. No difference whatsoever. Yes. Adam says, co-op banking movements are far from being communist. Banking cooperatives actually stem from the Catholic Church and Catholic ideology, mostly distributism. While it may sound like communism, is far removed because there is no centralized power. 100%, Adam, I agree with you. That's my point, right? People might think it sounds like communism, but it isn't. You're right. Thank you for that. 100%. Yes. And again, they're voluntary. If you don't like the credit union or the Catholic co-op, don't join it, right? If you like it, join it. It's up to you. It is voluntary. So yes, 100%. So I do think that does, you can go any way you want, right? And some of them will have more centralized power, but we do it, right? And I'm going a bit off topic, but this goes to my point. If you want, many of us give our money voluntarily to organizations that are centralized and decide where the money goes, right? Many of us give to civic organizations, civic groups, churches. Many of us do this. And the church people, the elders or whoever runs the church, whatever, decide where the money goes. We're okay with it. And that's fine. It's voluntary. If you trust or believe in your local civic group or civic association or church group, and you believe they're doing the right thing and you want to give them money, life is good. Give it. It's your money. But if you decide, you know what, I don't like what my church group is doing, you don't have to give it money. You could leave that church. Up to you. My point is, I just don't want someone else deciding where you give your money, who you give your money to. If you want to give your money, if you love the government and you want to write them a bigger check, go on with your bad self. Give all your money. Your money. You work for it. You own it. You do what you want with it. That's my point. So, yes. All right, so I keep going into these. Chip goes on and says, I no longer support Disney because of their butt kissing of China. I appreciate that. Yes. Joe says, how do we give to the Sharpe Way to keep it going? I love that. There are many ways you can help out the Sharpe Way, but the number one thing you can do is go to libertarianism.com. Yes. For those of you who don't know what libertarianism is about, not just me yapping about it, which that's what I do, but not just that, go to libertarianism.com, click that link that's in the description. That is our sponsor. They're the ones who are making sure we can keep this show going. It's free. Just go there. If you've taken the test and watched the videos, awesome. If you haven't done it, please go ahead and do it. If you have already, great. Take that specific link, that bit.ly link, and share that link everywhere and let people know they can go there. They're a sponsor of our show. They make sure that we're able to keep going. Please support it. It is free. There's also cool merch there. If you like the merch, you can take the classes, watch the videos, you get points, and you get that merch for free. Absolutely. If you like the merch and don't want to watch the videos, buy the merch. You can buy it if you want to. So either free or buy, like the merch. Go there anyway. Been there already. Share it. It does matter. You might think, Larry, does it really matter if I share this damn thing one time? Yes, it does matter. So share it again. It does matter. Every time people go there, it matters. We get more people to go there. People are always asking, Larry, where do you go after you are psyched about Larry Sharpe and libertarianism? Libertarianism.com. That's where you go. Absolutely. But also, like, comment, share this show, right? What you're doing right now. Like, comment, share in every way you possibly can. I have to stream this on 8 different platforms. So whatever you're watching it on right now, there are 7 more platforms this is being shown on because I have to show it everywhere. And then I also rebroadcast it on, I forgot, Anchor maybe? I forgot where. But I also put it in podcast form. So I have to keep this thing going everywhere so that I can get past shadow banning. So every share, every comment, every like matters. Please click all those buttons. Like, it does matter, and share, of course. If you want to support me personally running around New York State, LarrySharpe.com/donate. You want me to make this happen across New York State, that's where you go. Larry, I already donated. Okay, then volunteer. LarrySharpe.com/volunteer. That works too. All of those things work. You want to help out? Most basic thing, like, comment, and share. Second most important thing, libertarianism.com. That link right there. Click on that, share that around. And of course, if you want to support me, donate or volunteer at LarrySharpe.com. I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. He then continues and says, I also hit the bell so I get notifications. You should do that. Yes. Gene says, I'm taking the classes. Thank you, Gene. Yes, we need more of those. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes, 100%. So Adam says, by the way, brother, did your book come out? I know that my book was supposed to come out last year. It was way harder than I thought it was, and we put out a couple of chapters to test it. Wasn't as good as I'd hoped. So we have a bunch of rewrites to deal with. So we have a lot of rewrites. I'm hoping to get it out by second quarter this year. It should be good. That is my hope. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So yes, we will hope that it will come out very soon. Yes. So thank you. And Joe that also says retweet Larry Sharpe on Twitter. Yeah. So let me keep moving if I could. The things I mentioned were all things we should do, but there's something else we can do. And someone mentioned earlier, and the Jones Act. Now, people may not know what the Jones Act is. The Jones Act basically was an act put out, I think it was World War II. Maybe one of the world wars was made. I think it's World War II, but it's many years ago. And it basically says you can't come to an American port unless you're an American ship. Wow, what a pain in the ass that is, particularly for places like Puerto Rico and Hawaii and stuff like that. And you left an American port. I mean, just so many insanely stupid things that unnecessary. The Jones Act should end tomorrow. It is useless. Let people work as best they can possibly work. Make the prices lower to the best of our ability. End the Jones Act. It makes no sense to own it. Let people support each other. And look, we have to make sure that we are supporting people in their transition also, both financially, emotionally, in every way, shape, and form. That's the point. If we do that, you will find more people who want to working, people who want to work in different ways, working in different ways. Yes. The last piece I'll bring up, which is about how we make big businesses pay. People hear it all the time. Larry, I want big business to pay more. Me too. I agree with you. Big business should pay more. They use more of the resources. They use more of our stuff. They should pay. I agree. So let's come up with a way for get them to pay. And you see in all my policies, I always find a way for big businesses to voluntarily pay more for the infrastructure they use, right? You see it all the time. Leasing naming rights to bridges and tunnels, right? Bringing freight into New York City to create freight lines in New York City. Sponsoring roads to repair roads, right? All those things. They're using the infrastructure. Let's get them to pay for it. And you might say, Larry, how are they going to pay for all the billions? Is it just Amazon, I think? Just Amazon has a $10 billion yearly marketing budget. Just marketing, $10 billion. Just one company. There are many companies that have marketing budgets that large. That's billions upon billions of dollars that could be going into our infrastructure voluntarily, happily. They would put that money into our infrastructure. Big business pays directly. But Larry, then our prices go up. No, it's part of their marketing budget. It's already in their budget. Prices don't go up by default. It's just changing where they put their marketing dollars. We can do this. We should do this. This actually gets them to pay voluntarily. Well, Larry, we should just punish them and tax them more. I love that. Great. We're going to tax them more. But who's going to write the tax law? Corporate lobbyists? That's who writes the laws. Are they going to write a law that's going to screw them over? No. They're going to write a law that makes it look like they're getting screwed over, but they're not. How do I know that? I'll tell you how I know that. It's called campaign finance reform. We have the most regulated campaign finance that we've ever had in the history of our country today. And we have the most money in our politics that we've ever had today. And corporations, large businesses, and rich people have the most influence they've ever had today. But we have all these laws to stop them. Tons of them. More than we ever had. So yeah, that's how I know. So we can write those laws. It's not going to work. It's going to work. So yes. Joel says, corporations don't pay taxes. The final consumer pays them. Also true, which is why with my plan, they don't pay any extra. It's already in their marketing budget. So there is no extra payment. Right? And if we do buy their products because they support our infrastructure, then they make more money and they want to support more of our products, more of our infrastructure. Win, win, and win. Kirsten says, do you know, Larry, did the Jones Act originally have a sunset clause or was it intended to be permanent? It's a good question. I actually don't know. I would guess it was intended to, I would assume it was intended to be temporary, but then somebody was making money from it. So they encouraged it to be permanent. That's an assumption because that's how it usually works. But I actually don't know. But it's a great question. Thank you for that question. Maybe someone will go in the chat and let me know that because that's The chat usually figures that stuff out. So yes. Joe says, meanwhile, local municipalities here give Amazon millions in tax credits to bring them here. They tried it in New York too. It's backward. We're giving them our resources and we're paying them. It's completely backward. If we change how New York does stuff, it will change how everybody does stuff. Everybody will change if we change. These policies really matter. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the Big Brain Sunday. I hope we feel like we got our brains bigger. That'd be awesome if it is. I hope it did. I'm going to try to keep doing this. And we're going to be talking about inflation also tomorrow and Tuesday. So we're going to keep this inflation talk for a bit, chatting about it, how it works, supply chain, all those things, keeping it for a while. I hope this will be entertaining and educational. I hope both. And you guys can keep posting. And let's focus on this topic for a bit. Thank you so much. I will see you all tomorrow.